a joint account is a tool that has been typically used, especially in families that have health conditions. If one spouse passes away abruptly, the other spouse has access to funds to take care of immediate expenses. They may have liquidity needs. They may have, or if someone becomes incapacitated, right? And these things are not things that we individually may be qualified to detect and understand early on. But if someone becomes mentally incapacitated, is unable to make sound financial decisions that still affect our lives, that still affect their well-being while they're still alive, do you have access to funds, right? Do you have access to funds in your own individual name? Or are you locked out of an account you've contributed to for years because it's not in your name?
Welcome to my podcast, I Think I Can. My intention for the podcast is for individuals to begin a transformational journey towards self-awareness and self-actualization. And I do this by telling my own story, as well as all the stories from my past clients. And I do this so that you too can feel safe knowing that change is available to you, but also so you can take more responsibility for your life in 3 specific ways: in your health, your self, and your wealth. Now sit back and enjoy the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to I Think I Can podcast for another episode. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing you to Esida Selfo. Esida is a senior portfolio manager at Baskin Wealth. And I just felt the need to start talking about women and money more and wealth, because these are conversations that we don't normally have. But I see that in the relationship work I do, that finances are constantly talked about, and a lot of disagreements can come from these conversations. So first of all, I want to welcome you, Esida.
Thank you for having me.
And I'll just explain a little bit more. So yes, Esida is a senior portfolio manager at Baskin Wealth Management out of Toronto. And she brings over 22 years of experience in the wealth management industry with increasingly senior positions. So Esida works directly with clients, designing an investment strategy, considering their unique goals and attitudes towards risk, as well as their tax, legal, and estate requirements. And I should also say that this podcast is for informational purposes only, and it should not be viewed as investment advice, a recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell security. Information shared only represents Esida's views and not those of Baskin Wealth, and is current at the time of this production of this episode. So now that that's out of the way, let me just start off by asking you, Esida, we were talking about this before I pressed record, but there seems to be an energy in the air in terms there's more and more women talking about managing their own wealth, managing their own finances, where they feel they've dropped the ball, and wanting to take more responsibility in their finances. Do you feel the same way?
Yes, I concur. It's very frequently where I have women clients that either have been with our firm for a very long time or have recently joined us following a change in their relationship. So following a divorce, following a serious conflict in their relationship that directly affects their financial circumstances. Mm-hmm. And in more times than not, I notice that when these women clients come to us, or they become the primary voice of the portfolio when initially they had taken the back seat. They were not part of these discussions. I'm not sure if it was by their choice or not, but typically I notice there's either a lack of interest in learning or knowing more about finances, or there is an intimidation factor. Some of my clients were at some point in time too intimidated by the entire topic to the point where they weren't even able to start learning a little bit or engaging with the topic of money and finances. And so
You're right. Like in there's probably so many different reasons. And then there's also like the reason of just being a busy mom, right? It's that's another huge one. I know personally, like I can relate to all the reasons you said really on some level. Like okay, so I was having a great conversation with one of my best friends last night, who's also, close to the same age, mid-50s for myself. And she was saying, I am involved. Like my husband makes sure that I attend every meeting that he has with his investment group or bank or wealth management company. But she says she's still not really present. And I said, I know what you mean. I said, when I sit in those conversations, something strange happens to my brain. I feel like I'm almost like something closes off and I zone out. And I don't know if it's because I feel inadequate or stupid or, like, but it's almost like for me, like golf, I avoid it because I feel like I'm not good at it. And, it's sort of that sort of thing. And I don't know. What's your thoughts?
well, I'm aligned with what you just said, in that oftentimes we see women in caregiving roles. We see women caring for their older parents, their family members, for their partners, raising the children. And that takes up, or working full time while they're doing all of the above. I mean,
Mhm.
that's come more to the surface, especially following the COVID years that we've experienced. And so I believe that we have a newfound awareness in how much weight has been placed on women's shoulders
Mhm.
recently. And with that in mind, I don't know if it's just sheer exhaustion, but
Yeah.
also there's some awareness about the fact recently, as you mentioned, that we are focusing on caring for the others, but we also need to focus a bit more about ourselves to enable ourselves to continue to care for others. And
Mhm.
one of the vital aspects of caring for ourselves is ensuring our finances can support our goals. Our finances are aligned with our values. Our finances will continue to serve us to live the kind of life and give in a way that we want to support our children, our families, our parents, and our future goals and our future well-being.
I like what you said about our finances are aligned with our values. Can you dive into that a little deeper?
Absolutely. It's in understanding how your finances work. Um, you then anyone can make more informed decisions about
Mhm.
what they're supporting through their daily habits,
Mhm.
through the way we all live our lives, how we spend our money, uh, what companies are benefiting,
Mhm.
and how are we personally benefiting in return, in terms of what we get out of um, the support that we give intentionally or unintentionally to all of these different companies that all may or may not have their own agendas. And so it's
Mhm.
important to understand, um, in the context of our financial goals, that one of the concepts that's very important in the context of values is how we spend money, how much we spend. Is that aligned with the life we want to live, not just currently, but also in the future? Is that aligned with um, what we're able to afford for ourselves and our children and our families for the future. So just having a deeper awareness about what our values are today and what that means in terms of what our finances should look like tomorrow and in the many years to come,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of hopes and expectations for our lifestyles.
So building a vision and is what you're saying. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Building a vision, but not just building a vision and having a goal in mind, but ensure that these goals are also tangible and measurable. So, not just having a vision and a goal, but also having a system around this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And this is where I think, we have to take responsibility. Like in the conversation last night too, my girlfriend said, and we have to sort of realize, like, because we were talking about how our brains just and she's an engineer, like, so she is very factual. She's linear thinking, like numbers, so you would kind of think like the numbers thing, the facts, the linear thinking, it would make more sense to her, but it's on a deeper level. And what she was saying to me, it's like, but Luella, we sometimes we just have to like give it, realize that we're good in some areas and not others. So I think what she was saying is sort of like, you know, if you're not really good at something or you don't really enjoy something, it's sucking too much energy from you, and just hand it over to somebody else to do it for you instead. So one might think, oh yeah, a wealth management company, but my answer to that though was like, but this is your wealth, and like we need to take responsibility for that. Like to me, I'm always kind of like, there's three things I feel like we need to take our own responsibility for. That's self, self-reflection, self-honor, self-love, wealth, because it's so important. And then health, right? Like no one can make us exercise. No one can, stuff food, good food down our throats. Like this is something, these three things, I think we all have to take more responsibility over. So just, like I think I presume that's what you have your passion around, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's sort of like helping these women to make very informed decisions, and doing it, educating them in a way that, light bulbs are turning on, like they get this and they see how they do have to be more involved and take more responsibility.
Absolutely. I agree with you. It's very important to have someone you can trust on your side to guide you through this learning process. For investors that haven't had an opportunity to get involved so far, there's no better time than the present to start learning and arming yourself with this knowledge that will help your future self live the life you want to live. And so there's two parts to this, like you mentioned. There's the part where you have to identify the right institution or company that best suits you and your needs as an investor, but also taking personal accountability that you have to be part of the discussion. You have to learn to be an active participant in that conversation because you are the one bearing the consequences of each decision. The more informed we are as investors, with the guidance of a knowledgeable advisor who is listening to our circumstances and changing lifestyle needs, the more empowering this will feel in the long term. It's a process that we have to grow to like and eventually love. But I fully agree. There's two parts to this: the finding someone to help you along and guide you to make the right decisions, but also the learning curve that comes with that. We need to
Mm-hmm.
be accountable for.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask, like, for your own personal journey, then, like, were you always interested, like, in money, because, or willing to take responsibility? Like, I think there's a lot of fear for women around money. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. I mean, I think it's all really like honestly, like as a psychotherapist, like so much of who we are is based on our childhood experiences, right? How did our parents like was money talked about in the family? Were our parents savers? Were they spenders? Were they investors? Were they yeah. What how did
So what motivated me personally
yeah.
was I had a deep awareness about how little I knew about money.
Mm,
And because I made the active choice to immigrate to a foreign country where I didn't have a lot of relationships or financial support, and I mainly worked to support myself my entire life, I came to the view that I absolutely have to learn about money. And so I made it my mission to study and learn about investing and build a career around investing to help other people who had the same thoughts and fears as I did to make it tangible, personal, and helpful and see a positive change in the journey of women as well, who again are in these caregiving roles. We're placing ourselves in these caregiving roles um, at times at the expense of our financial success in the future, which determines the success of other projects or um,
hmm.
things we want to
So,
accomplish in life. And so I actively then pursued a career in investing, also with the hope of helping others that felt the same as I did. So I can fully relate and understand. And that's why I try to spend a lot of time in my meetings and focus on asking my
mhm,
um, clients to bring their wives, bring their daughters, bring their children to the meeting. I encourage clients to have money related conversations sooner so that we can all bring more awareness and start thinking about how all the decisions of today will impact our future life. To start teaching a little sooner the concepts of inflation in
mhm,
today's day and age where we hear a lot of discussions about inflation.
mhm,
It's a very important topic, much more so for investors that may not have a lot of time to invest, where we
mhm,
have people that are retired, where the pension income they anticipated will more than suffice to cover even an inheritance they may want to leave for their children. Now they're reconsidering how much money they have to
mhm,
support the increasing
mhm,
cost of services they may need, the increasing healthcare costs, senior care living costs.
mhm.
So it has become a more prevalent discussion where I always encourage our clients to bring their children and wives and partners to the table and ask every question they can think of.
Yeah. One thing I'm noticing when you talk is sort of like we're encouraging for them to bring their wives and their daughters. So are you saying that it's not often where you're encouraging them to bring their husbands and their children? Like, I mean, what I'm saying is that are like how many of your clients are male
So
percentage?
so most of the clients that we have are our families. And so what I
But
notice, however,
but
is there a higher engagement from
mm,
the father or
yeah,
a higher
yeah,
engagement from the father and less so from the children. There's a higher engagement from the husband and less so from the wife. And
mhm,
I'm not, sometimes I know the dynamics of the family and I know that the wife simply has no interest in learning about this. And so I try
yeah,
to encourage um, also bringing into perspective the fact
hmm,
that some marriages end, some husbands pass away before their wives, and
hmm,
it's very important in the succession of the family wealth planning
hmm,
and in having the wife understand how they're going to continue to afford their lifestyle.
hmm,
And we have seen in a number of circumstances where the husbands have passed away and the marriage has ended because the husband passed away. The wife has no idea how much money they have, how
hmm,
many different institutions the money is held in, what type of accounts,
hmm,
how to understand her lifestyle, what the lifestyle would look like in the
Mm-hmm.
context of having so many advisors, which advisor to choose, which advisor to trust. This is information that the wife may have chosen to not involve herself with in the past. And that choice is no longer an option. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and also, it's a very difficult time. A time of a life transition is a very difficult time to come to terms with the fact that we know nothing about our finances, I would
Yeah.
imagine, especially later in life, where you may also have the onset of mental health or other health issues,
Mm-hmm.
which
Mm-hmm.
probability may grow based on
Mm-hmm.
age. And so that becomes a more challenging time to start learning about some of the more complex concepts and how they apply, more importantly, to our own personal circumstances. It's not just about learning things that we will never encounter in life. It's about learning how we will continue to live the life we want to live in our
Mm-hmm.
terms, which
Mm-hmm.
is so important. Um, so
So,
that's a lot of what I'm seeing. And when I see a breakdown in a relationship, that's when I get to deal with a woman for the first time ever.
yeah.
And I've had instances where I had to set up very frequent meetings
Mm-hmm.
and ensure that even where there was a lack of interest or I could sense some intimidation on this particular topic, to try and encourage um, building some more knowledge and
Mm-hmm.
asking more questions and starting to build this knowledge from the ground up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What, okay, so it wasn't so much from like your story, it wasn't that pain became your passion. Like often when I'm interviewing people and we're talking, we're on a health topic or we're on you know, abusive relationship topic or whatever it is, there's sort of a like, oh, this pain has created your passion. Like you weren't ever at a rock bottom stage, or it wasn't like sort of a painful realization that now you've made this your mission. Like you do remember, like you have conscious awareness of kind of going, maybe you were sitting on a park bench one day and just
Mhm.
sort of like, you know what? This is important. Like money is important. Like do you remember that? Like where you sort of decided like and why?
Well, again, I'm an immigrant to Canada and
Yes.
very grateful for the life I have here and I've built here. But as someone who moved to this country at a young age with no with no net, no financial net, I
Mm-hmm.
decided at a young age that I was going to afford my own life on my own terms
Mm-hmm.
and finance my own life. And so that awareness comes with, um, how am I going to do that?
Right. Hard
It's
work.
not like
I
I
think
have an incredible network of people I can just call. And if I lose my employment, which I mean, anyone can lose their employment at any given day for a number of reasons, where how am I going to pay rent? How am I going to put food on the table? How am I going to create opportunities for myself in this new country I chose to call home? And so questions like that, of course, I had moments of
yes.
panic in
Yes.
coming to this. Of course, these were thoughts that I had, so I had moments of panic, and that sort of, I guess, that was part of what fueled my ambition to learn
Yeah.
more and understand more.
But see, like I think it's important to bring that up because I mean, you want to help people avoid that panic stage, right? And um I mean, like honestly, when I talk about like money and when like how do women really become more financially responsible, like unfortunately, this is my point in a way, unfortunately, it's often because of some sort of pain point, some realization or hindsight, whether it's a divorce or whether it's yeah, like I mean bankruptcy for some people, or yeah, it's just, but we don't want to do it that way. We want, and it seems, see, it's the same thing with health, really. Like
Yeah.
it's like, why are we waiting for a chronic disease to happen before we clean our household of toxic chemicals, before we choose a different diet, before we we start making it a more of a walking like routine and or getting certain steps, like we don't want this for people. We want to make it like a conscious choice to do this. And you know like, why isn't this brought in? Like, you brought up the topic of daughters. Why isn't like this part of the high school curriculum, for example, right? Like all these important things that we wish we could plant the seed a little bit earlier. um but I think that's where parents have to take responsibility, and if the schools aren't doing it, like, we
Yeah.
have to do it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And we try to talk to our children about money and how it affects our daily life. We try to talk to our children about circumstances. Personal circumstances can happen to anyone, no matter what their health or wealth or history may be. So it's important to have awareness and have some level of knowledge and start from somewhere, and also support however we can, either through knowledge or through sharing some of what we have with others that may have a little less. So I'm really working very hard and actively to increase awareness with my children, but in doing so, I also acknowledge that schools um, can do a little bit more to enhance awareness for all the children.
Mhm.
Both my husband and I have are aware and knowledgeable to a certain extent about finances and investing. And so I also understand that not all children may have access to this type of knowledge. And so I feel it's very important for every parent in each community who has knowledge in this field to, it starts with each of us, right? So I have
Mhm.
offered to the principal of our local school, public school, to go and talk about topics they consider are important as it pertains to financial literacy. And I'm willing to volunteer my time and put together presentations and information to create some interest and to share some knowledge. And, I know there's a number of financial professionals in the bigger cities. So I feel that, we all have to do the little that we can with the community that we're in to help
Yes.
increase awareness in all of our children, but also the system as well,
Mhm. Yeah,
of the need, so we don't have a problem later.
exactly. I
Later
think
on.
that's a wonderful thing to do. And can I ask you how old your children are, and what are some things you're doing in your own home to have them be more financially responsible and literate?
So some of the things we do in our home. So my children are 3 and 7 year olds, and some of the things we do is, for example, when they receive birthday presents, we make them aware how fortunate they are to have friends and family that care and love them so much to give them all the things they want. But at times the presents come in the form of money. And so we always try to have a portion for saving for the future, have a portion so that they can understand they can afford something that they like to buy on their birthday, but also have a portion saved to support the children in need that may not be as fortunate to receive all the gifts they want at the time of their birthday or a special occasion, and increase awareness about we are part of this community. We need to help those that don't have access to the same resources. And so,
Mhm.
or something else we do is when our son asks us to buy the next new thing, we inform him that we would be happy to buy it for him. But what would be even better is if he is able to earn his own money. And so we are able to then discuss with him the concept of investing, which we give him a little bit of money and he puts out a lemonade stand. And then he takes that money and he grows it by selling the lemonade to our wonderful neighbors who always show up
Yes.
to buy some. And he notices how the money is growing, so that's an investment from our part. But then he has to return to us the capital, which is the funds we invested,
Oh,
and
that's so
then the
funny.
funds that he earned, he can, of course, save some, spend some, and then donate some. So we try to sort of talk to him about the concept of investments or other relating concepts that way as well.
I think it's so important, like, for you to even say, like, like, minus the capital or whatever. Like, that's so funny. Like, I mean, And I have to think about the times that like my kids were young. I Yeah, it's something I didn't do that, but I probably should have. It was almost like, oh, don't like these conversations weren't even being said, but it was I was like, don't worry about like, yeah, the $5 I gave you like in change to start this off or whatever, right? It's sort of um like the how much the lemonade cost, or I never asked for that money back, but like in hindsight, I should have. Like, that's see, and like this is where it gets complicated in relationships, because I think it would be such a great lesson for children. But I know my husband, and he would completely roll his eyes and go like, give the kid a break, like sort of thing, like, like, and so but it's not giving the kid a break. It's teaching kids from a young age that you yeah, like you need money to make money
Absolutely. And also grow the money that you're
and
giving.
grow the money.
Grow the money. It's such an important concept. So saving is a huge part of it. It's very important to save. It's very important to, so going back to what I said a bit earlier, having a system in place. And what I mean by a system is have a wealth advisor if it's possible at all. And there's different types of advice that you can get. But have a wealth advisor that advises you with your investment strategy and investment plan. Have, on top of that, another layer is ensure you have a financial plan. This is something that we are working very hard at Baskin Wealth, and we've introduced free financial planning services to all of our clients recently. It's a very important tool that we should all be using. We should have awareness about our current and future expenses. We should have awareness about future goals and be able to know what they are in tangible terms and how much they will cost. So we need to be able to know that they're tangible and measure them in dollar amounts. And on top of that, we need a system, because life changes, life circumstances change. And that's why it's important to have that investment advisor to adapt your investment strategy and to your changing life circumstances and keep it realistic and relevant. And so these are the two sort of starting points that anyone can benefit from. And again, there's different types of wealth advice out there. We've recently
Can you speak a little bit about that? Like, I don't know if the next part what you're going to get into is like dealing with a bank versus
Right.
dealing with a wealth, or dealing with like an accountant, or dealing with a
Right.
bookkeeper. Like some people think that's enough, right? So
Right.
so
So a
can you
bookkeeper
explain
would
that?
help and an accountant may help in maximizing tax efficiencies. And so that's what they specialize in through training. That's very different than an investment manager. Investment manager is focused on growing your wealth. And so these are very different goals. Yes, we do consider tax implications when managing wealth. However, that is not our priority here. That's not what our primary goal is. Our primary goal is to optimize your wealth and make sure that the short-term funds you're going to need are aligned with your financial and lifestyle circumstances. And so that's a very different set of priorities than an accountant. So two very different roles, two very important sets of priorities, but two very different roles. And a financial planner is more focused on ensuring your financial plan reflects your financial means, your assets, but it also takes into consideration your personal circumstances, your preferences for spending now and spending in the future, your tendencies towards debt, accumulating or paying off debt. So all of these topics are very important, and they're covered in different aspects of our wealth management programs.
Okay, so anybody right now could go in or contact your company and just say, I need some assistance with financial planning.
Well, we are an independent investment management firm, and because we're still a smaller company, we manage around $2 billion of assets, and we typically help families and are able to have families that have $1 million or more in investable assets. And we have limited capabilities to help clients, anyone with their financial plans. But we have just recently, in the last few years, introduced the financial planning services where we're able to offer financial planning services to our clients. And so unfortunately, we are not able to offer free financial planning to anyone who calls us because we simply don't have the resources to do that. But it's important. I'm sure most investors have a bank account,
Right.
and most investors have access to financial planners. And so it's important to have a financial plan in place. And it's important to, if you don't have one, to reach out and find a way to have one created for you, and ensure that you're part of a process, ensure it reflects your personal circumstances, your tendencies to save and spend and invest.
Okay, so just so I'm clear too, and that audience is clear. So if you have a bank account, then you would have access to a financial planner within the bank, right? That's something that they typically.
You can always ask the bank. I know each bank has financial planners. They
Yes.
mostly have, from my experience with the local banks, they have a financial planner or two who have offices in that same building.
Right.
And so the bank can make this very accessible to you as a bank client.
Right. And then
so, go ahead.
Then there would come a point, let's say, where, let's say for your specific company, where you said, you work with people that have $1 million or more in investable assets. Is that what you said?
Yeah. So that's above the value of one's real estate, for example, $1 million that they can invest through our investment strategies.
Right. So then at that point, then they might reach out to someone like yourself, or
Yes.
if they remained with the bank would like have their own ways of growing their wealth, right? And then it's a choice of the consumer. Then, do I want to go with the bank or do I want to go with a wealth investment?
Absolutely. And the nature and the quality of service may differ greatly based on what your choice may be. And it's also important to keep in mind that many of the clients that we've seen transfer funds to Baskin Wealth from a bank, invested assets, also were sold insurance policies through a bank that may or may not have needed. They were sold other products. They may have been invested in GICs that the bank had created that may or may not serve them in the long term. And so while it's very important to have a financial plan, it's equally important to ensure that the financial plan is also aligned with the investment plan and your long-term goal for your wealth. So many times, the insurance policies that may have been sold to some clients may or may not be relevant to their lifestyle, but meanwhile, they are paying that premium. They have been paying that for a number of years, and they forgot they were paying it. And so when we revisit the financial plan, as they become our clients, we create a new financial plan that is current for them. We revisit all of these cost categories. And it's so important to do this exercise on an ongoing basis to truly understand where the money is going. And I see now that I have a bank account, much like most people do. And what I'm seeing now through my bank account is a number of new tools being introduced, financial planning tools, the daily banking apps, which enable us to create more awareness around where our money is being spent, how we're spending this money as we're receiving it, the sources of income versus the sources of depletion. The cost of debt is going higher with interest rates going up. Bank of Canada raised interest rates again today. And so it's important to have an awareness about the debt, the interest we're paying, the higher interest amounts we're paying, especially for those who have a mortgage, especially for those that have grown accustomed to using the line of credit, to using the credit card balances, to first of all, try and understand what the interest rates are. How much money are you spending monthly to service this debt?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and is that the best use of your funds? Is that the optimal use for your funds to optimize your overall wealth in your lifetime? So these are all questions that need to be revisited with a wealth advisor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And quite frequently, like probably every 6 months, or would you say
Yes,
quarterly, or what are your thoughts?
it's initially it's important to um, if an investor doesn't have an awareness, it's important to revisit them as often as we need to until we
Mm-hmm.
feel confident that we have awareness and we are on a path through a plan and a system that serves in a measurable and specific way our long-term
Mm-hmm.
goal. And so if we feel that we're in a place that we don't have awareness, we should look at them daily until
Mm-hmm.
we truly understand how we're going and we get the help we need from the appropriate advisors to come up with a plan
Mm-hmm.
to,
Mm-hmm.
that leads us in the knowledge and the confidence that we can afford the lifestyle we want to have in the future. And it's a
Mm-hmm.
process. It's a process and it starts right now.
Mm-hmm. So, like when you talked about banking apps and stuff like that, I think what you're referring to is, let's say I would go into, no, what are you referring to? Because when you first said that, I thought, uh, like right away I was
I'm just
thinking of,
referring to our bank account. So if anyone has access to online banking,
yeah, yeah.
that's what I'm referring to by
So
virtue
what?
of being a customer and having a bank account.
Yeah, okay, okay. So like, because I was thinking a little bit more about like how credit card companies are sort of like, I know one credit card company that I have, would even like categorize your spending, right? Like it's, oh, you're spending this much on groceries based on the point of purchase or whatever. Like the
Absolutely. So
yeah.
so however it is that you can access that knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
um, there's been innovation in financial services technology recently. Let's take advantage of that to increase our own awareness. If our
Mm-hmm.
expenses are higher, let's delve into why were they higher?
Mm-hmm.
Will they be
Mm-hmm.
higher again or will they be lower? With this
Mm-hmm.
newfound awareness,
Mm-hmm.
what can I do if my funds are limited and I cannot meet my expenses? This is less a concern for someone who is an affluent investor and
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to, their income more than covers and exceeds significantly their expenses, and they have no concerns about the quality of their retirement or the legacy they want to leave. But for
Mm-hmm.
other types of investors who are still building their wealth and learning about their finances, um, it's so important to have this awareness. And if we get this awareness through the newly available
Mm-hmm.
tools,
Technology, yeah.
it's so important to delve into why the expenses are higher. And also, there's been a lot of recent fraud
Mm.
because technology has advanced. So, another reason to have a heightened awareness
Mm-hmm.
on expenses, understanding what is going in your credit card, understanding what is coming out of your bank account, where is it going? Are all of these items and habits supporting your long term financial goals?
And this is why we can't stick our heads in the sand when it comes to like being fearful of money or looking away. I mean, on average, it'd be really interesting to see how many people look at their bank account or look at their credit card statement. Would it be on a weekly basis? Would it be a monthly basis? Would it be like I never look at my credit card statement? Yeah.
At
Um,
least on monthly basis, at a very
mhm,
base minimum, to truly understand that A, they were your expenses.
mhm,
B, these expenses are you were aware and they reflect the kind of life you want to live and what this means for the future. And try and put that into a context of a financial plan and a long-term goal. And try and have that budget or cash flow aspect of this. It also becomes very important in relationships such as what you mentioned earlier that face a lot of conflicts around
yeah.
financial planning discussions. So, from what I understand, that is conflict around finances is one of the leading causes for divorce.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and if that is the case, having that deeper understanding of finances in order to be able to frame the problem, not the person, and have a constructive discussion around how to
Yeah.
support the common and share long-term vision about
Yeah.
family values and family goals. It's so important.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. Like, I mean, and maybe I can bring in the conversation of joint account versus personal accounts. What do you see more of a trend in the the clients that you have? But like the reason I ask about that is it's like you're often bringing it back to values, as a family or something like that. And so to me, that would mean a joint account. So just an just an example might be how a woman might go, and it could be a man too, but how a woman is really focusing on her health. And so she buys all her produce at a health store, and it's all organic. And and how the the man might be just like, like, this is ridiculous. Do you know how much
Mhm.
blah 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 is like? So then the conversation would have to go back to how I value my health, and and then having those deeper conversations.
Absolutely. So, in terms of financial well-being and conversations that are sensitive in nature, um,
Mm-hmm.
we have to have these difficult conversations. There is no way around them. Conflict is part of our daily life, and we need to learn to accept it, embrace it, and learn how to manage it, and learn to manage it in a way that serves our long-term goals.
Mm-hmm.
And health is without health, there
Mm-hmm.
isn't much else to worry about.
What do we, yeah,
So,
who cares about money, right?
and
Without
so,
health, like, I mean,
so yeah.
yeah, you could be
So,
healthy and living in a tent down by the river and be completely happy.
but it comes back to having a system in place
Yeah. Yeah.
to account for to cover our priorities. And
Mm-hmm.
so, in having a system in place, having work with a financial advisor to find out how to best budget so that you can afford to have, can you reach a compromise, can you find a solution, work with a financial advisor to find out how those expenses are going to fit into your budget so that you can support your health, so you can live a longer lifestyle, which will require more money.
Yes. Yeah.
But find how are you going to do that, and be flexible in looking for those solutions. Be proactive and be flexible.
Mm-hmm.
Have that goal that is measurable and tangible. Have a system around it through a financial planner that you support through your daily actionable habits, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So all of this needs to be in place with the support of a well-known and trusted advisor. And going back to um, how do you manage this in the context of accounts? Well, it's important to have, from a wealth transition program, from an estate planning program, it's important to have a number of things in place. A joint account is a tool that has been typically used,
Mm-hmm.
especially in families that have health conditions. If one spouse passes away abruptly, the other spouse has access to funds to take care of immediate expenses. They have they may
That's a
have
good
liquidity
point.
needs. They may have, or if someone becomes incapacitated, right? And these things are not things that uh, we individually may be qualified to detect and understand early on. But if someone becomes mentally incapacitated, is unable to make sound financial decisions that still affect our lives, that still affect their well-being while they're still alive, do you have access to funds, right? Do you have access to funds in your own individual name? Or are you locked out of an account you've contributed to for years because it's not in your name, and it's because very difficult, for example, to establish someone has a mental incapacity? And we see that more often in wealthier investors that may be older in age because they've accumulated wealth for years. And this is one of the things that we see now as advisors. Many of our clients are starting to experience symptoms that vary in nature and intensity. But this is the difference between having an advisor who is there for you, who spends time getting to know you. And that's the value that an independent wealth advisor brings to the table, who makes time to get to know you as a person instead of pushing out solutions that same institution created to you. Someone who is there not just to give you investment advice, but acts as a gatekeeper to your assets. Should something happen to one of my divorced clients who lives alone and their children are grown and they live away, right? They don't live too close to her. They may or may not know what's happening with their health. So these examples come from real life. And that's where the value of an independent advisor becomes extremely important, especially in situations where one of the spouses is unwell and the other spouse has zero knowledge about finances for many reasons.
Exactly.
And knowing the history behind these situations helps come up with solutions that serve that particular person.
Exactly. So the long-term relationship is what's super important in these situations. Yeah. Yeah. I never really thought about that before, is like mentally incapacitated. Yeah, it could be a stroke, it could be a car accident, it could be any one of those horrific occurrences. I'm just thinking, would the will protect that? I mean, if they had a current
Well,
will?
the will is very important that the will be current at all times.
Yeah.
So revisit the will at least annually.
Annually.
In older years, revisit it more often. Revisit not just the will, but every registered account you have. Ensure the beneficiaries, as life circumstances change, are still the people that you want to leave as beneficiaries. Are they current?
Mm-hmm.
And so many people who have saved a certain amount of money and invested for long periods of time have other estate planning tools in place, such as trusts.
Mm-hmm.
And there's different ways to plan for circumstances of this nature. There are powers of attorney. It's so important to have powers of attorney.
Mm-hmm.
It's so important. It's very important to know who you are appointing to act as
Mm-hmm.
your agent, as your attorney in these circumstances when you go through very difficult life transitions.
Yeah.
So it's very important to have these documents in place to ensure your beneficiaries are recorded properly and to revisit that.
Yeah. It's so
with
true.
age.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's a lot of great advice. Like I think looking back, there's a lot of, I think everybody can listen to this and kind of go, I have some homework to do. It may be some difficult conversations that I need to have with my partner. It might be, booking an appointment with my wealth management, person, or my bank, or whatever it is. Or it might just be taking out my credit card statements and looking at my bank account and my spending, and is my spending aligned to my values? It sounds like a week of work, actually, but but it's important work, though. It's important to have the kids enrolled in the dance class, and it's just sort of like, that's, I think, what it is. It's sort of like, I think most people's attention it's pulled in so many different directions, and we think all these things are important, but it's a matter of prioritizing. And it's, in fact, in a couple of the relationships sessions that I had yesterday, the topic was time audit.
Yeah.
I said, you need to do a time audit of your relationship, because you're telling me you have no time to connect. So there's a problem here.
Yeah.
But we can also say, a financial audit.
Yes, 20 minutes a day. Set aside
20 minutes a day.
Start with that.
Oh
Start with
God.
20 minutes a day. And
that sounds like a lot to me, but okay.
No, it's doable. If we spend 40 or 50 hours a week caring for our families, or completing a full-time job, full-time employment, I'm pretty sure we can find 20 minutes a day to ensure our lifestyle expenses will be covered, and our long-term goals are such that they will enable us to live the life we want. And there's one last thought I want to leave everyone with today. That's something I recently read somewhere, but it just I just can't seem to forget it. So I just want to share that with you. And it's what's one decision that you can make today that will save you from making 10 more decisions later on? What is one choice that you can make today for your future that eliminates many, many other choices that you don't have to stress about in the future? So think of that question in the context of your finances. So that's the one thought I want to leave with. I want to leave you with today.
Oh my God. Okay. That's a tough one. Well, I'm going to throw it right back at you. What's something that's coming up for you? Being a financial,
something that comes up for me is increasing awareness each and every day with all of the women and the mothers that I meet at the playground and the families I meet at the playground when I take my children to meet their friends, increasing awareness around how important it is to make time to learn more about financial literacy, financial planning, and understand how that affects our personal circumstances, and sort of create that curiosity that will help everyone strengthen their finances in the long term.
I think that's excellent advice. And one more thing I'm going to ask, if I can. I know we're almost like, what would you have like a bullet point list of how the 20 minutes should be spent? Because I think
can absolutely work on that for you, and okay. I would be happy to share that.
Okay, that'd be perfect. And and anybody can reach out to me after listening to this. And if I have that information for you at that time, I'm more than willing to share it, because I think a lot of people would be lost. Like, what do you mean? Like, look at my bank account? Like, what does that even mean? Like,
absolutely.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I think this is amazing, and I really appreciate the time you gave to me and my audience today. And I don't think I was going to say any last comments, but I think the last comment you said was like enough to like keep us thinking for a while. So
thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you. Okay. And for everyone else, have a great week. Bye-bye. Thanks once again for joining me on another great episode of I Think I Can podcast. If you liked it, please subscribe below so you don't miss out on any future episodes. And until next week, treat each day like it was your last, because each new day is a privilege that we shan't take for granted. Cheers and have a great week. Bye-bye.